Hello everyone. In today's class, we are going to focus on employee stress, burnout, trauma, and frustration. Along with that, we are also going to focus on type A and type B personality. Let's get started. So first thing first, we're going to speak about employee stress. So in layman's term, stress can be seen as something which is interrupting your day-to-day lifestyle, and it is negatively affecting you. So stress is often seen as a reaction to a situation that isn't always actual situation. So it is often seen as a reaction. When we are speaking about stress, we need to understand that the concept of stress actually came from engineering, where like the base of a building is given more amount of pressure than what it can hold. So similar ideas can also be applied to a human being when a lot of work and a lot of expectations is given on an individual beyond their ability to grasp it or beyond their ability to process it. So that can be seen as stress. So connecting it to employee stress. So in our day-to-day life, we have specific demands, specific needs. And when the needs are higher than our ability to meet them, that's when it becomes stress for us. Sometimes it's not our individual abilities, it is also because of the lack of resources, because of which we can experience stress. Coming to workplace stress, it speaks about harmful physical and emotional responses that can happen when there is a conflict between job demands and the amount of control an employee has over meeting these demands. For example, an employee is expected to uh, meet 10 targets a day, but then as per the availability of time and based on the availability of resources, and also we need to consider the psychological capability. Instead of 10, the person has the actual ability of meeting 6 or maximum 7, but then the employee is expected to meet 10 demands. So that's when an employee experiences heightened level of stress. In short, what it means is that when the job demands are beyond the ability of an individual to deal with it, beyond the ability of an individual to control or manage these demands, that's when an employee experiences workplace stress. Now, talking about the types of stress, not all stress are good, not all stress are bad. So, keeping this idea, the stress is divided into eustress and distress. Eustress somewhere makes us achieve our goals, in the sense, not all the times when we experience stress, we are pulling ourselves down. Sometimes because we are given a specific stressful environment, we are able to perform better. So that's why it is called eustress. Eustress are those stress which are in a way healthy and it helps us achieve our goals. On the other hand, when the demands are beyond an ability to process, it pulls us down, it increases our anxiety, it increases the pain, it causes a lot of suffering. That's when it becomes distress. So eustress speaks about something which makes us grow. Distress is something which makes us either be stagnant or in a way pulls us down. Now, coming to the problems associated with stress, in short, why is it important to understand stress? We are going to divide the idea into for individual as well as for workplaces. So it is important to understand stress or know about stress dominantly in industrial psychology, because it not only causes a threat to an individual, it also causes specific set of stress to the workplaces. Coming to how it affects an individual, it affects a person's physical health and as well as psychological health negatively. It deteriorates the well-being of an individual. It also affects how a person achieves goals. Sometimes, yes, not only like even in the process of achieving our goals, we sometimes put too much of pressure on ourselves, and that may be something not needed always. So sometimes when we are put into a stressful situation for a prolonged period of time beyond just to achieve a specific set of goals, it can pull a person down. And yes, something which drastically affects an employee is an employee's self-esteem or confidence. So when an individual is repeatedly given stress, and so not always that the person is able to achieve the goals given, it pulls up employee down, and sometimes that itself is an end to a lot of an employee may not be motivated enough to continue working. So one of the important and like the most negative aspect of stress is that when the stress becomes beyond a specific limit and there is just too much of expectations, an employee may feel let down not only by others but also by themselves, and that affects a person's self-esteem. Now, speaking about how employee stress or workplace stress can affect the organization, what happens is it increases the absenteeism and turnover. So a lot of organizations are known to give a lot of stress. So employees may not be motivated enough to go to the specific workplace because instead of seeing it as a challenge, they're seeing it as a problem. It also reduces the quality and quantity of work because employees are already stressed, anxious, and they're experiencing more of distress. It can reduce the quality of work given by the employees, and thereby it, as on a larger picture effect, it affects the quality of work given by the organization. Yes, obviously, if you're living in constant stress, it reduces the job satisfaction. And yes, over time, because there is a high level of absenteeism and turnover, the organization may even struggle to find new employees. And we always know one thing about stress is that it reduces the healthy communication. So because of increase of stress, there can be a reduction of healthy communication at workplace and thereby increase the stress level at workplace. So this is about what are the problems associated with stress. We are dividing under individual heading as well as for the organization. Now coming to the how to recognize stress. What are the dominant signs and symptoms of stress? So we are going to divide it in 4 different categories. It mainly speaking about first category, which is emotions. Then we are going to speak about how these emotions end up coming as a behavior, how it affects one's cognition, and how it physically affects an individual. So how to observe stress in an individual. These are the 4 aspects how based on which we are going to discuss. The first thing is how stress affects how a person feels. So a person can appear more anxious than usual, or they may even appear more tired. Instead of saying depressed, let's use the term sad. So if a person shows sadness and sometimes even signs of depression for a prolonged period of time, they can be experiencing high level of stress. They may appear more irritable, angry, and frustrated for a prolonged period of time. And they may also appear apathetic as well as they may also appear bored. So this is how emotions gets reflected in the form of stress. So these are one of the observable emotional signs in related to stress. Now coming to how it ends up as adding a behavior to it. So it increases the accidents and mistakes an employee makes at workplace. So if an employee is experiencing stress for a prolonged period of time, the number of accidents at workplace is also heightened. An employee even show higher difference in eating habits as well as sleeping problems. Employee may also reflect behaviors such as increase in tobacco or any alcohol consumptions. Along with that, something very dominantly observable is problematic social behavior such as withdrawal and aggression. Employee may sometimes reflect that, yes, I'm very angry, I'm not, or on the opposite side, I'm not interested to communicate to anybody. So if an employee shows these signs, and if in an organization, a lot of employees show these signs, that means that most of the employees of the organization may be going through stress, and as an organization, they can keep a check. Stress not only affects how a person feels, it also affects how a person behaves. Along with that, It also affects how a person thinks. So it reduces the concentration ability, it reduces the organizational ability or decision making ability, it makes a person be less creative. And along with that, something very dominantly affected is a person becomes highly sensitive to criticism. So this is about how stress can affect the cognitive abilities. Now coming to how stress dominantly affects the physical body, a person, or rather say how physical symptoms of stress can be seen. A person may appear sweaty, they may appear dizzy or even nauseous. They may report high level of body aches and pains. They may even, because stress, there are studies which claims that stress affects the immune system. A person may be highly, little more extra prone to infections. Along with that, they may also report cases of asthma, ulcers, skin rashes, or skin-related complaints. And yeah, obviously it affects cardiac problems when a person is exposed to stress for a prolonged period of time. The major causes of stress for an employee, not only stress at workplace, but also at home environment. And we can't keep an employee away from the home environment, because directly or indirectly, it does affect an employee. So stress affects different for adults and different for children. For adults, it is dominantly pressure of job, or sometimes it's just the death of close people, the relationship conflicts or relationship changes. And yes, we can't deny the problems associated with money. Sometimes people don't know how to manage money, and sometimes money is just not enough to meet their daily needs. So these are common sources of stress which affects an employee. And there are specific stress causing factors for children, and you can go through it, because sometimes the children's stress can also aggravate and affect an employee, because a home environment, if the children appear more stressed, their parents may also copy these behaviors and behave like slightly more stressful or experience heightened level of stress at work, home environment. So what are the different causes of stress in workplace? So we have divided this specific idea into different aspects. So first thing first, it is the sources of stress. Then what are the individual characteristics which gets reflected? Then what are the occupation, how does it physically affect? And then in long run, how does it form into a disease? So how stress dominantly affects, like let's first speak about what are the dominant sources of stress at workplace. We have divided into 5 different areas. So first one is intrinsic to job, then is role in the organization, career development, relationship at work, and organizational structure and climate. So intrinsic job dominantly means about something which is very specific to the nature of job by itself, such as time pressures, physical environment of the work, physical danger, etc. Role in an organization, it dominantly speaks about role conflict. You don't know whether you're an employee or an instructor, or you play sometimes some people play the role of an information receiver and also information giver. So sometimes this role conflict itself can cause a lot of stress. So sometimes stress can be that people don't even know what the roles they play in the organization. So that is about roles in the organization. Then comes career development. Sometimes the source of stress is that you're given too much of promotion and too much of work. Sometimes it can also be that you are never recognized and you're never getting promotions. Lack of job security, and so on. All these are career related aspects which can affect a person experience stress at workplace. Then comes relationship at work. So yes, we often hear the term human is a social animal. So how how one's relationship gets affected when they are interacting with others plays a very important role. So if an employee has poor relationship their seniors or even juniors or even colleagues, that can affect an employee negatively. Then comes organizational structure and climate. What if you don't play an important role in the organization? You feel that you're never called in for any decision, you're never called in for any important meeting, even though it is associated with you. Um, it can negatively impact your self-esteem and thereby increase your stress levels. So these are the 5 sources of stress at workplace. How does it affect an individual characteristic? Is like it increases the anxiety, increases the level of neuroticism. It also increases the way a person reacts in workplace. Like in the sense, a person may show heightened level of emotions that can make a person appear more moody or cranky. So that is about individual characteristics, how it gets formed up when a person is experiencing workplace stress. When this source of stress continues and it is not monitored or not checked, it can not only affect a person's psychological health, it also affects a person's physical health, in the sense that it increases the diabetes rate, heart rate, increases the substance dependency, and so on. If further not checked, it can come into any form of diseases, for example, coronary heart disease or any specific mental health disorders can also stem up if symptoms of occupational stress is not taken into consideration. So how can we actually manage stress? So we are going to divide that under 2 dominant headings. The first one is changing the situation. The next one is changing yourself. So sometimes we always say that, like, you always worry that you're experiencing this problem and you often self-criticize it. Instead of self-criticizing, we can first focus on if we can actually change the situation. For example, you're experiencing constant distraction and that is increasing your stress. So what if I change my physical environment? What if I keep the phone away at workplace and come and sit and do my work? So sometimes one of the easiest way of managing stress is observing if we can physically change the environment of the stressful situation. On the other hand comes changing self. Not always we have control over the situation. So instead of changing the situation, we start focusing on changing oneself. So how to change oneself is further divided into 2 different aspects. The first one is active coping. The next one is rehabilitation. Active coping dominantly means that you're doing specific behaviors or doing specific tasks to deal with the problem related to yourself. On the other hand, the rest or habituation tasks is somewhere making you deal with the symptoms of stress in a healthier manner. The first, so active coping, it's dominantly task-based. Rest or habituation behavior is mostly coping-based. So sometimes if you just relax, meditate, take a break, all these things may not actually solve a problem. So it's important to focus on actual physical tasks. So in short, if you are experiencing problems related to lack of being heard, so what you can do is give yourself an assertiveness training or go into specific training related to social skills. So in short, you're doing specific behaviors to deal with the problem more physically. On the other hand, it's not always like, dealing with the problem which can help you. Sometimes we need to also calm our physical body. And that's when rest or habituation tasks come into picture, where we relax our physical self, which will help us cope with the stress in a better manner. Now that we have come to the end of stress, let's speak right now about burnout. So in our day-to-day life, we may experience heightened level of stressful situation where we feel that we are incapable of achieving our goals, incapable of achieving our targets. It is a feeling where you feel emotionally exhausted and physically exhausted. That's when an employee experiences burnt out. And you may also go through burnout because sometimes you're heightened with a lot of assignment works and a lot of college related works. So burnout is not only seen among in workplaces, it can also be seen in different aspects of life when the work level is beyond an ability for somebody to handle it. So extreme form of stress can be observed as burnout. When an employee experiences burnout, they can seek help from counselors, healthcare professionals, and social workers. Certain professions which are constant in radar of burnout are air traffic controllers, customer service representatives, and stock brokers, because there is a frequent shift and they need to be in alert mode all throughout. So it occurs that when a person is experiencing burnout, they may feel slightly overwhelmed or may appear emotionally drained, or they may feel that they are constantly meeting their demands, that they're not able to deal with it anymore. So that's when a person can observe burnout. They often appear to lose interest and motivation to do a specific task. It reduces productivity and drains a person's energy. So it becomes very important to identify when a person is experiencing burnout, because it increases helplessness and hopelessness and makes a person lose interest in the job which they are doing. Long-term challenges, or rather say, when a person is exposed to burnout or experiences burnout frequently, it makes a person highly vulnerable to be diagnosed under specific illnesses. Uh, and they also be highly prone to cold conditions such as cold and flu. Major types includes frustration. Frustration happens when you have a specific goal and you're not able to achieve those goals. That is the first type of burnout. The next one is conflict. So there are three types of conflict: approach, avoidance. I will have attached a specific link to understand this particular concept a little better. Kindly go through it. The next type of burnout is change. Change in the sense, sometimes we need to readjust to our environment. Sometimes our life itself has certain frequent changes, which makes a person feel emotionally and physically exhausted. The last aspect of, or last type of burnout is pressure, where you have a lot of tasks to perform beyond your ability to perform. When a person experiences burnout, their ability to perform drastically reduces, in the sense they are not able to showcase their abilities as much which they are capable of. There is a heightened level of energy depletion and they may report exhausted or tired for a prolonged period of time. There is something very common observed during burnout, is that they may feel mentally distant from one's job, in the sense they may feel that this, I don't want to think of, they may report statements like, I don't want to think about my job. I don't feel the job is for me. A job and me are two distinct entities. So there is a high level of mental distancing from one's job, and heightened level of negativism and criticism and cynicism is observed in a person when they are experiencing burnout for a prolonged period of time. Now let's come to the next concept, which is trauma. It occurs when a person is experiencing a threat to one's security. And speaking about workplace trauma, it means that you feel threatened to, and you feel that you're insecure at workplace. So dominantly trauma can be including natural disasters, organizational crisis, and so on. Now let's speak about major types of trauma. Trauma can arise because of harassment at workplace, wrongful termination or discrimination. Employee is perceived as incapable of meeting the goals, or may be considered incapable of evolving with the company. So all these aspects can make a person experience trauma at workplace. Along with this, there are few specific reasons and specific types. One of the dominant type is layoff survivor sickness. An organization may sometimes decide to downsize their employees, and maybe not, you may be staying in the organization, but then your best friends or workplace colleagues may have lost their job. It does affect when you lose the job, but it also affects an individual when their best friends at workplace or a very close colleague has lost their job. So that is called layoff survivor sickness. When you survive to stay in the organization, but people with whom you were working or who you were close to at the workplace have lost their job. So a lot of feeling of uncertainty, anger, and guilt builds up inside you, even when you have a job, but you're still constantly living with a fear that you may not have a job over a certain period of time. So this is one of the common reason or common type of trauma an employee may face at workplace. Another type of trauma dominantly experienced at workplace is PTSD, commonly known as post-traumatic stress disorder. People can experience post-traumatic stress disorder not only when they themselves experience tragedy or injury, but then it also can happen when they have observed others experience specific injury or tragedy. Or not only injury or tragedy, it can also be like observing violence or experiencing violence at workplaces. Now coming to frustration, stress, and job performance. So as previously mentioned, I had mentioned briefly about what is frustration. You have a specific goal in your mind, but then you're not able to achieve those goals because certain environmental circumstances or even internal circumstances that can lead to a person experiencing frustration. So in short, a person has a specific need. To achieve those needs, a person sets a specific goal. And in the process of achieving the goal, there are various obstacles a person faces, and that gives rise to frustration. A lot of times, as a reaction to frustration, people often take up different defense mechanisms, and you all have read a lot about defense mechanisms in your previous classes. So this is one of the common defense mechanism is one of the common reaction or response to frustration. What are the different sources of frustration at workplace? The first one is management, then comes the co-workers, then comes different workplace hassles such as you don't know where you kept your a specific pencil which you were using, you experience prejudice, you are constantly being interrupted when you're doing a specific job. So all these things are like these petty things sometimes can increase your frustration level. So this is coming under hassles. Besides management, co-workers, basic hassles, other sources include the basic stress, performance, vulnerability, threshold. Okay, now let's speak about the different sources of frustration. One of the dominant reason why a person feels frustrated is because of the conflicts with management and managerial demands from an employee. Then comes adjustment to co-workers. Sometimes when you are finding it difficult to adjust or interact with coworkers. That can lead to frustration. Daily hassles such as being constantly interrupted, losing an item, feeling discriminated, or experiencing prejudice. These daily hassles can add to a person's frustration. The next area is stress performance vulnerability threshold, perceived control. So in short, there are, even when there is no stress, job challenges are absent. So performance tends to be low. Okay. Now coming to the next topic, which is stress performance, vulnerability threshold, and perceived control. So we all have an idea, as when I was discussing about eustress and distress. Stress is not always bad. Basic amount of stress is important because it makes us more functional. So keep stress performance vulnerability threshold. It goes with this idea is that when there is no stress, there is no job challenges, and the performance of an employee will automatically come low. As and when the stress increase, the performance also tends to increase because stress helps one to achieve their goals. So when I'm speaking about slight increase in the level of stress and that increasing the performance, that we'll consider as eustress. And gradually, when the stress keeps increasing, the productivity of an employee starts decreasing. That's when distress comes into picture. So this is called stress vulnerability performance model. And I think I've already discussed this. So kindly keep, if this question comes up for your exam, please draw the specific diagram. Now coming to the concept of stress threshold. Now coming to the concept of stress threshold. Okay. Now connecting to the previous model, we'll go to the next heading, which is Connecting to the previous model, let's start with a new thing, which is stress threshold. The first idea is the levels of stressors. So a person can tolerate certain amount of negative feeling when a stress occurs, and that can negatively affect an employee. Okay, so in short, a person may have different frequency or magnitude Connecting to the previous model, let's now speak about stress threshold. First heading is level of stressors. An individual can tolerate certain level of stress before the entire idea of increased work comes in as a negative feeling. In the sense, you may handle certain level of work. If the level of work increases beyond a specific point, you may start experiencing negative feelings for the work by itself. And that can negatively affect your performance. In the sense, if I give you one assignment 1 week, you can still be feeling positive and completing the task. What if I start giving 3 assignments per week? You may start having negative attitude towards the subject itself, and that can drastically pull down your performance for the specific task. Now we are going to speak about low threshold. So small changes or disruptions, constant disruptions can reduce an employee's performance. In the sense, the threshold level for an employee is like even when small changes or disruptions happen, that is pulling a person down. On the other hand, high threshold levels dominantly means that you have high ability to tolerate stress. So usually They may not react or respond to small changes or small interruptions at workplace. They may appear highly calm and composed. Their productivity will be higher, and they may not show uh, reduction in performance even when the stress levels are increased. However, yes, everybody has a breaking point. When stress level increases beyond a specific level, at a very high level, they may also start showing reduction in performance. So low threshold stress dominantly means even with small changes, a person may show reduction in performance. With people with high threshold level, they may show higher ability to be composed and calm and be more productive. However, after it reaches a specific level, after when the stress reaches a specific level, they may show reduction in performance. Now coming to the concept of perceived control. When a person feels that they are in control of their stressful situation, a person may experience heightened level of well-being. In short, I'll explain with an example. You have a specific stress causing factor at workplace, such as meeting 5 targets a day, and you only have resources for 3. You have the cognitive ability to do 3 tasks instead of 5 tasks a day. So what you do is you engage in specific coping strategies. You realize that if I plan out my tasks and come 10 to 15 minutes early at workplace, instead of 3 tasks, I'm having the ability to perform 5 tasks a day. So you have engaged yourself in healthy coping strategies. And thereby, when you involve in this, you feel that, yes, I am in control of the task assigned to me. That is increasing a person's psychological well-being. So even for that matter, when you engage in specific coping strategies and it works, it thereby increases psychological well-being. So in simple terms, perceived control means that you have the ability to control your stressful situations. Now coming to the last aspect of this particular video, which is type A and type B personality. Type A personality are often seen as they are more goal-oriented individual. Type B personality, in simple terms, they are more reflective and innovative. It is slightly an outdated concept, but yes, it is something it's good to know about type A and type B personality. Now, first speaking about type A personality, usually the people who are type A personality may appear, because they are slightly more goal-oriented people, they may have higher level of impatience. They may appear competitive by nature, get upset easily, and one of the very important characteristics is that they often associate their self-worth with the level of achievement they may experience. So such people can also appear always being in time urgency, and yes, they may also appear slightly workaholic. Common traits include high level of impatience, competitiveness, work obsessed, achievement oriented, aggressive, and stressed. One of the dominant traits includes, as previously mentioned, time urgency, aggressiveness, competitiveness, strong achievement orientation, and need for dominance. So this is not something which need for dominance is not something which was highlighted earlier. So because of their high goal-oriented behavior, some people who are having type A personality may also appear that they want to dominate others. So need for dominance is an important aspect. Physical characteristics of a person who is type A personality includes that they may have facial tension. They may like always tighten their lips, clench jaws, etc. Their tongue may be clicking or teeth grinding. You may observe these physical symptoms. Dark circles under eyes may also be something which can be observed in people with type A personality. And somebody who is type A personality may also have heightened level of facial sweating, dominantly observed in forehead or upper lips. Now coming to type B personality, when I'm speaking of type B personality, it can appear that like to the other extreme of type A personality, these people are easygoing, relaxed, and highly flexible. Type B personality are basically opposite of type A. When we are speaking about the characteristics, they may take slightly more casual and carefree approach towards life. Dominant characteristics include even-tempered, they are highly flexible, they are adaptable to change, they are highly patient. Along with all these things, they may also have a tendency to procrastinate. So one of the dominant traits of type B behavior is high level of flexibility, low stress levels, relaxed attitude, highly adaptable to change. They're usually even-tempered. They sometimes can be appearing slightly laid back. They also tend to be somebody who procrastinates. They're highly patient and they are very creative. So these are the specific traits of type B behavior. So with that, we come to the end of the class. Thank you so much and have a nice day.